good morning, good afternoon, depends on where you are. Thank you very much for taking your time and joining us on what we think is an important webinar. Um, the topic here is preventing the next attack, leveraging AI and real world implementations. The goal of this webinar is to discuss strategies that allow all of us to be just a bit safer by adapting the type of strategies that have proven to be effective in preventing target violence and leveraging the advances in technology. My name is Michael Rozin. I am president of Rozin Security Consulting and Rozin Technologies. I've been in the industry for approximately now 25 years. My entire career, I have been focused on preventing target violence in different capacities, from Israel to United States, and in different forms. I dedicated my career to just that. I'm also a certified threat manager through Association of Threat Assessment Professionals. Okay, with me, I have Shai. Shai, perhaps can say a couple of words?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So my name is Shai Torn. I'm the chief exec of Corsight AI. Spent the last 25 years in different sectors of security, and happy to be here and talk about how technology can assist in everything that Michael will talk about.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, this is the objective, to share methods for leveraging technology to prevent target violence. And before we jump to the technology, I think Shai has a very compelling solutions to show. I think it's first important to lay the foundation first on what is target violence and what are the best methods proven to prevent target violence. I also introduce a case study at the end that allows us to discuss specifically how prevention and when prevention will be possible. As we know, target violence is progressive. The target violent attacks never just happen. The concept of pathway to violence as well researched and proven to be true by Calhoun, Weston, Fain, Woskol, and many other scholars in the field of threat assessment shows us that almost every act of target violence that we have seen and witnessed typically starts with some sort of grievance or an unmet need or some sort of conflict or ideological belief. From there, if that grievance, unmet need, ideological belief is not addressed, from there, individual progresses to an ideation phase. From there, they move to a more tactical phases of the attack, where they research and plan the act, prepare for the act, breach. We're getting very close to the moment of execution. And from there, the attack itself unfolds. And when we're thinking about prevention of target violence, both from a physical security standpoint, as well as leveraging technology, we know that those specific phases here, such as research and planning, preparation, and attack, as described in the pathway to violence, those are the phases where we have the most ability from a tactical, physical security standpoint to intervene, identifying the individuals on the pathway to violence, assess them as such, and intervene appropriately. And I think this is where I'm excited to work with companies like Corsight AI that truly enhance the ability of the security team to identify individuals on a pathway to violence and enhance the visibility of the security team, if that's the case, and allow us to act before bad things transpire. Okay. Now, way too often still, when we're thinking about being proactive and preventing target violence, too often the attention is on this one of the two factors that always have to be there for any attack to take place. We're talking about harmful intent, and malicious intent, and means for attack. Too often we see organizations are zeroed on this tangible element, meaning the weapon or any other means for attack, depends on the type of attack it is. And we invest in technology that allows us to detect the weapons, perhaps before they're used, or react to the weapons as they're used, or we are adding significant amount of physical measures with the idea that the physical measures will either perhaps prevent the weapons to be effective or mitigate the damage or also enhance response. And that obsession with the weapons for the attack has not proven to be quite effective. As we look over the history of incidents now, can showcase here many, the facilities, the targets that prioritized the means for attack rarely have been successful. We've seen horrendous tragedies transpire. And why? Well, I believe that addressing the means for the attack is still important. That is less important than addressing the human and the malicious intent. And this again, where technology and advance of technology allows the security team to intervene a little quicker and focus on the right factor. Because we see that regardless of the target, regardless of the actual motive, the type of grievance that we have, the individual has started with, and the desired outcome of the attack, the location, even the type of weapon they use, and who the attacker is, right? And what drives them, regardless of all those different variables. The one constant factor that it's always there is an individual with malicious intent. And this is why I believe it's critical for the security organizations, big and small, quite frankly, to have the ability to recognize individuals with malicious intent before attacks play out. The question is, what does it really mean? And how does it help us prevent the next attack? Well, here's how. We know that once the incident takes place, once the tragedy happens, the outcome is a response. And certainly, every security team out there should have an effective response capabilities. However, too often, the response capabilities in this situation here is the objective of many security organizations. And when we prepare to respond, or we're only there to respond, we will get response. But as we know, this is not good. This is ultimately a failure of security operation. Response is undesired. Security is effective when it's able to prevent things from happening. And this is where focusing on intent is the right idea. Because by focusing on malicious intent, we're able to recognize those pre-incident phases as reflected in the pathway to violence concept. And technology helps us amplify our ability to recognize it. This is the true essence of being proactive, is focusing your entire security enterprise on the phases leading to the attack rather than prioritizing response. So how can we do it? How can we do it how can we identify malicious intent? Both research and field experience show us that there are three proven mechanisms through which we can actually recognize individuals with malicious intent. One is what we call legitimate contextual profile abnormalities. And I'll explain, of course, what this means. The second is what refers to a physiological process of response to detection apprehensions or response to perceived danger that is governed by our limbic brain. And third, it's through planning. Planning for the type of aggressors' methods of operation, so AMOs, as we call it, that we can expect to see at or near our facilities. Those are the three proven ways that both the scientific research as well as practical applications show us that it's quite possible to recognize those with malicious intent and act on those recognitions before bad things happen. Now, let's explore each one of those factors. For example, if you think about your facility, your organization, your company, your school, etc., and every one of the organizations we are working and serving, they're typically set of legitimate reasons as to why people are there. Those legitimate reasons are example of what we call legitimate contextual profiles. And the way those legitimate contextual profiles are expressed in front of us is a combination of those characteristics. We have this 90% rule where we say if 9 out of 10 people that come to your facility for that common legitimate reason display the following common characteristics, we can account for them as part of legitimate contextual profile. For example, what we are talking about is things like actions that one displays, belongings that one may carry based on their legitimate profile, behavior that they display, sometimes identity is part of a legitimate profile. For example, I might know that Joe is the delivery guy who typically delivers packages at my facility, or I might know that Sarah is the one who typically comes in for certain requests. Story or certain level of knowledge that individuals with certain type of legitimate contextual profile might possess, as well as documents and at times attire becomes relevant. Those are the common characteristics that we know allow us to describe what a typical legitimate profile is based on those different expected reasons that we can see in our sites. Now, the thing is, perpetrators of targeted violence are concerned about being caught. They don't want to be detected. They do not want to be recognized, and certainly they want to be stopped before they're able to carry out the act. And because of that very reason, they attempt to look just like the legitimate contextual profiles we see in our facilities. They always do. They always try, but they never 100% succeed. If you go back and review case after case after case after case, even if you open the media, you probably always hear those things like red flags. Have you heard about this before? Have you opened a news story after a target violence thing pop up and you heard there were red flags? Those red flags typically cover the abnormalities that we're commonly expected to see on the aggressor who is coming to target your site. The abnormalities can be classified in those two buckets: positive abnormalities and or negative abnormalities. Positive abnormalities means that we see extra actions, extra belongings, extra information, extra things that we're not expect to see based on the typical legitimate profile. And or negative abnormality. Negative abnormality implies that what we see there is missing the elements that we expect to see. A UPS guy shows up at your site and he's wearing all the right brown things. He has the right credentials. He just lacking packages today. It's a little abnormal. Or an individual shows up and they're doing things you're not typically expect to see. That's an example of abnormalities. Of course, abnormalities don't make anyone guilty of target violence. Abnormalities are just that. They're abnormalities. They are signs for the security team to take a closer attention, to pay a close attention on the right person at the right time, and perhaps apply the right protocol that allows us to assess in short amount of time as to whether or not this individual does or does not pose a threat to us. The second concept, as I mentioned, is this idea of physiological response to the concept known as detection apprehension. That stems from the research done by Paul McMillan in early 50s, who revealed that our brain actually is built of those three distinct systems. One of them is known as a limbic system. Limbic system governs our response to danger. There's a little bit more on this, but for the purposes of time here, I want to cover just the essence of this fact. The essence of this fact is that when we as humans perceive danger by seeing, hearing, feeling, or thinking about it, the response to danger, regardless of where you are, regardless of who you are, regardless of your age, your gender, and anything like that, the response to that is always consistent. We freeze, we attempt to distance ourselves from the danger, and we fight. We have no other option. Those behaviors, those concepts translates in behaviors. Some of them actually happens, the activations of autonomic nervous system happens inside our body and can be measured. Some of those behaviors can be observed. And once we train both the security personnel and leverage the technology that Shai is going to cover here in a second, it allows us to really leverage those nuances, especially when we have a stimuli. We have a security person or anything else at or near your site that will make the individual who intending to carry a target violence concerned about being detected. The third method of detecting malicious intent at or near your operations is the concept of recognizing predictable aggressors' methods of operation. We have this concept in our company. We say that failure to predict the aggressor is a failure to protect against it. When we as security professionals fail to predict the most likely aggressor's modus operandi at or near our sites, we almost guarantee to fail to protect against those modus operandi at or near our sites. Now, when we talk about aggressor methods of operation, here we're talking actually about the most tactical part of what in the pathway to violence we will call planning, research, and preparation. For example, we know that before any attacks playing out, individuals that decide to carry certain type of acts zero their attention on most suitable targets, the targets they perceive the easiest for them to be successful at. From there, they gather intelligence about any target through any open sources, as well as on-site elicitation of information. They observe the site, they surveil the site with the idea to elicit and understand the common routine. What happens at the site, both by non-security and security teams. They plan the attack, they collect the means for the attack, they dry run their acts, and then they proceed to execution. And it's those four specific AMOs that could be predicted as to how they're going to play out at and near one site. Those AMOs allow the security team to recognize individuals intending to cause harm and intervene at the right time. And this is where, by the way, I'm really excited what you're going to see next. This is where solutions like Corsight are really awesome, because they really enhance our ability to do so. Now, another area is when we talk about surveillance and where technology can amplify our ability to recognize people is when we think about surveillance, we think about the where and the how surveillance will take place at or near our sites. For example, we can recognize that there are certain areas of our sites that aggressors are going to be mostly interested in, such as entry points and or the areas where potential attacks could materialize, and or any security mechanisms in place. And to observe the routine of those, what we call blue zones, the surveillance objectives, typically aggressors leverage what we would call our red zones, areas at or near our sites that allow one to be in an area for some period of time without necessarily attracting attention, and yet be able to observe the actual routine as to what happens there. When we do this type of planning, we can prioritize, and we actually can leverage our camera systems coupled with solutions like the Corsight, for example, that allow us to identify those. They're there for some period of time, or they're there again and again and again. That doesn't mean that one is necessarily guilty of planning target violence. That means, though, that just like with profile abnormalities, that's a sign for a security team to pay closer attention. I think that's significant. And kind of to highlight some of this, I will use this case. This case took place a while back, and the target here was a Jewish community center in a Shalom village in Kansas City. The individual known as Fraser Glenn Miller, he decided to open fire. He wanted to kill Jews. He used 2 shotguns and 1 handgun. He unfortunately was able to kill three individuals at the Jewish community center. Now, here's what transpired. What you see next is from the investigation, of course, of this case. And I want to highlight, as I go through this case, I'll highlight some opportunities that we all had potentially to intervene. For example, in his interviews, Miller said that he conducted internet searches of Jewish centers in the Kansas City area, but was convinced that authorities were monitoring his computer and phone, so he was always careful. Remember, the perpetrators of target violence are indeed fearful of being caught. Miller said that he had read online that the community center was sponsoring an American Idol-style talent competition on April 13. And according to the flyer that he read, says young Jews from all over will be participating, he said. He thought that would be a perfect target because of the sentimental value of what he's gonna do. When it comes to surveillance, he said he drove to the Jewish community center numerous times in the week leading up to the shootings. I drove all the way from my home in Missouri, he said, back and forth, he said. I reconnoitered the damn place. He said he never went inside the center, not only because his emphysema, but it made it difficult, very difficult to walk far, but also because he was afraid. Again, he was afraid of being caught. Now imagine if during this surveillance phase, if he was actually approached by a security team of either one of the sites and ask a few questions at the right time, at the right place. I think would have seen a different outcome actually of this situation. I'll fast forward to the next phase. When it comes to dry run or rehearsal, he said that he first went to the center about 6 days before the shooting. He was unarmed, and he said He wanted to see whether anyone would try to stop him, and nothing happened. He said, I parked right in front of it and drove around, and nothing happened. That was not detected by the security team of the Jewish Community Center. I was terrified of getting caught with these weapons, he said. If I got caught with these weapons, I'd be finished. I would spend the rest of my damn life in prison, he said, and not having done anything. Fast forward to the day of the attack. Miller said he went to the community center three times on April 13th, starting about 10:30 or 11 o'clock. Again, 3 times. He went to the community center 3 times. Now we're talking about an individual that has visited the Jewish community center to conduct surveillance, to dry run, to gather intelligence, and now moments before the attack, we're talking about somewhere of at least a dozen times. After a third visit, he said he decided to go home because he hadn't seen enough people to satisfy his quota. Which he said he was at least 6 or 8 people. I pulled over and thought, here I am, going home. I might die, and I have not fulfilled my mission. My conscience would not allow me to do that, he said. So he decided to go back. He arrived back at the Jewish Community Center around 1 o'clock. He had a pistol and 2 shotguns, and he unfolded this attack. Now, as we can see here, I think we can all recognize multiple opportunities that the security team here had potentially to identify and intervene. And I think if we had the support of the right solutions, they're focusing on the human and identifying human malicious intent, I think the outcome of this tragedy would have been different. We believe that the right idea when it comes to security operations and security strategy is to prioritize prevention. And to prioritize prevention, we have to adhere to the following security objectives of deterrence, where you psychologically affect the motivation of the perpetrator, make him believe that it's just too difficult to succeed. Detection, not only of the weaponry, but of malicious intent, and have the ability to intervene at the right time in the right place. Response, ultimately, is a failure of security, but it's a necessary objective that we have to be able to perform at when and if needed. From here, I'll turn it to Shai, who will walk you through an application of the of facial intelligence systems and how that can support this very strategy. Shai, please feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Michael, for the I think very educational insight that you gave. And guys, what I want to do in the next 10 to 15 minutes is to talk about how technology can assist in everything that Michael talked about. But before we go into that, I would like to start by kind of sharing with you some of the, I would say, conclusions that I've come to learn after doing a few projects together with Michael and the team. Eventually, everything that Michael, you can't see.
Can see you except Rozin.
Nobody can see me.
Except Mike.
No, we can see you. We can see you well. We can see you well. Yeah, we can see you well.
Okay. So but you hear me, right?
We can see you and hear you well. It's all good.
Okay, cool. So the everything that Michael told you has to do with understanding what is in front of us, understanding what is you all have different facilities or communities that you want to protect, and you're using different sensors. And all these sensors are basically providing you with data, and the technology needs to understand what is happening. It needs to understand what is happening. How does it do it? It is taking all the data and it is analyzing it. So there is a layer of analysis that is looking at the data in order to try to understand what is it that we're seeing here. What are the patterns that we're seeing? What are the anomalies that we are seeing? In order to do this analysis, the technology needs to create what we call a digital replica of the real world. So creating a digital replica of the real world will help us do all of this analysis. In order to create a digital replica of the real world, you need to make sure that there are no blind spots. And I think this is very essential to understand, that regardless of any technology that you consider having, the first thing that you need to make sure is that the data that is being collected is analyzed in such a way that there are no to very little blind spots. Let's take an example here. Let's assume that what the system tells you is that at 11:30 p.m. there was a lady trying to break out to a restricted area. But if you don't know this lady, well, it will actually be very hard for you to do anything. It will be very hard for you to understand what happened here. If you don't know this lady because the other two times that this lady was detected by different cameras in different times, in one of them, the technology did not detect this because it was very dark, and in the other one there was occlusion and not all the faces were visual or were visible, then these two blind spots are not enable you to understand what is the story. It does not enable you to understand that this lady was actually planning something with another person who have accompanied her before the breaking and entry, and therefore by finding this other person, or if this other person is in your database, it will be very easy for you to understand what happened here. So having data with minimal blind spot, the very, very essential thing, regardless of any technology that you decide to use, is that you need to make sure that it is able to cope with what we call real world condition, because all of us and all of the examples that all of the attacks that we're trying to prevent are happening in real world. And in real world, people are trying to disguise themselves. People are walking in the dark. There are occlusion and stuff like that. And if out of, let's say that you have 10 cameras, if out of the 10 cameras, 5 of them will not be able to understand what's happening in front of them, it means that you have a lot of blind spot. It means that your data is corrupted. It means that all the analytics that is done on top of this data is inaccurate. Let's go back to Michael pathway to violence. And I want to focus here on 2 areas. The first one is the research, planning, and preparation, and how this technology can help you with that. So usually the preparation and the research is done by a couple of people, understanding or flagging the person of interest that are in proximity pattern, identifying patterns that are scouting behavior, identifying repeated visit, because all of these are indication of these research, planning, and preparation phase. If we get to the breach and the attack, in most cases, the sooner you're able to identify the initial indication of a breach, the higher the chances are that you will be able to stop the attack. In most of the cases that we are seeing, the attack is an evolving attack. So it starts with something, and then if the attacker is successful, it will move to try to injure or, God forbid, kill more people. And the sooner you are able to identify that, the higher the chances that you will be able to save life. In all the cases of attack, we are facing a situation of chaos. And one of the things that you need to do is to move from chaos to what we call situational awareness, understanding what happened, who are the bad guys, who are the good guys, where did the bad guys go, and what are they planning to do next. And if, God forbid, an attack did take place, then what we need to do is to be able to what we call close the loop as soon as possible, and we'll get back to that in a little while. Now, when Michael talked about profile abnormalities, he mentioned a few things, and I would like to talk about 4 of them. The first one, the tire, is where there are indications that has to do related, for example, for closing, that are of a concern to us, are and kind of an abnormality. When we're looking at this example here, one can say that if you are running a queue in a closed environment, a person that is wearing a hat and a sunglasses, maybe a COVID mask, is an abnormality, is an indication, not that you need to do something aggressively, but that you can go and pay extra attention to this person. This is an example of such an abnormality. When we're talking about documentation, in most of the cases, people who are planning something bad will try to use fake IDs in order to conceal their identity. There is one other common thing that they will do. They will not use the same fake ID twice. So in this case, you would like the system to be able to tell you that this specific face is matching more than one identity. This is an abnormality that would draw your attention that something bad is happening here. Let's talk a little bit about behavior patterns. A behavior pattern, for example, is something which is a very specific behavior pattern, very indicative of researcher and collecting the data. In this example here, you can see that a person is looking inside a store for some time. You can configure a system or the technology to provide you with an indication of a suspicious intelligence gathering. Now, it could be, for example, 10 minutes outside of a store. It could be an hour sitting in a car in a parking lot. You can decide what is an indication for you for an abnormality that you would like to be alerted on. And the last thing has to do with belonging, whereas having a person with his belonging separating and leaving the belonging clearly is an indication of something which is wrong. Now, I want to move to Michael's description of the aggressor method of operation. And as you remember, Michael talked about this kind of journey that the aggressor is following. And I want to focus on two areas. The first one, the intelligence gathering and the surveillance, usually happen during the routine activity. And during the routine activity, for example, if I have a critical infrastructure and people are trying to collect information, they will usually go around this critical infrastructure. It could be a museum or what have you, but you do want to have the technology being able to alert when a suspicious pattern is being repeated, not just when a person is passing by, but when they are going around and around the building. You want your stuff to be alerted so they can pay extra attention, so they can go to this person and ask for detail. The second area that I want to talk about is the rehearsal and execution. Now, from Michael's perspective, he's describing very, very nicely the difference between the rehearsal that is and the execution. From a technology perspective, honestly, it will not always be able to differentiate between the two, but actually it doesn't really matter, because if there is an identification of a pattern, which is a pattern that is used for execution or for the rehearsal, this is something that you want to be alerted. So in this example here, the people who are authorized to walk here are either staff members or people who are holding tickets. If you have a person who is trying to bypass the security just so that next time he will be able to put a bomb or something, you want to be alerted of such an unauthorized person that is walking in this area. And the last thing is that if we, God forbid, got to the situation where someone did make the attack, you want to be able to, what we call, to close the loop as fast as possible. In this example here, you can see a hooligan that is holding a torch in a football match, and very, very fast after that is being is part of the crowd, and it's very hard to find him. The ability to say this person entered through this gate at that time holding this ticket enable you to close the loop very, very fast and put your hands on that person. Michael talked about the different areas of the red zone of surveillance location and the blue zones and the yellow zone of attack location. For each of the part of the work that when you want to define what will be the best and optimal way to protect the facility, to protect the community, the work that Rozin Technology is doing is the analysis of this different location. For each of these locations, you want to use different modules and position the sensor in different places so you will be able to address the relevant use case. So, for example, in the yellow zone of the attack location, you want to make sure that you're using a whitelist, so only authorized people are there. Or if you're talking about the red zone, the insights that will provide you with indication of patterns that has to do with intelligence gathering are the ones that are applicable there. And just before we come to the end, we talked about all the different phases of the detect, prevent, and response with how the technology at every phase can assist you. But we didn't talk about deter. So I want to show you two examples and that talks about deter. And basically, if people believe that they will be caught, they are less likely to act. There are two examples here, one from Essex Police in the UK, where they have clear statistics about the reduction of the number of events that are happening just because of the fact that people see that their police is using technology that might catch them. And the other example that I want to show you here is from Mall of America in the US. I'll just let Will talk.
So I looked at from the day we launched until end of February of 2024, 23 to 24. We had 561 stops. That's pretty good, the old school way, I thought. I looked at the same period after facial rec. There's a 92% increase in the amount of people that we're stopping. That's obviously significant. And then I looked at, okay, how does it look month over month? So I pulled that data. You see, July and August are the first 2 months that have the highest numbers. That's because I think word is still getting out, right? But then what you see are those numbers continuing to drop. They drop for several months in a row. December and January, they go back up. December obviously is our busiest month of the year. It gets cold out in December and January.
So as you can see here, and these are stats from Mall of America, as you can see here, the pure fact of people knowing that you decided to use technology in order to protect yourself, in order to protect your community, in order to prevent the next attack, will act as a very significant element in the deterrence. And with that, I think, Michael, back to you, and happy to answer any question that you might have.
Thank you very much, Rai. Yeah, we'll be happy to answer any questions if you have. Okay, the question, Shai, perhaps it's for you. Is the Security Operations Center operator that is meant to send queries to the image database, or will Corsight flag the suspicious behaviors in real time?
So everything could be done in real time or post-event. The idea of addressing or preventing the next attack is very heavily also, of course, dependent on the ability to get alerted in real time. But you can also run that post-event and understand what happened as well.
Nice. Thank you. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, I think that we have one more question. Okay, a few more questions come in. Okay, so the first question is from John. He says, how does Corsight AI ensure compliance with GDPR and other global privacy regulations while maintaining high accuracy in facial recognition, especially in public or semi-public places?
It's a great question. Thank you. So GDPR, Corsight is compliant with GDPR Article 25. We're actually the only company in this domain that is also compliant and certified with ISO 42001. Just to explain, in the world today, there are different certificates that are required both in Europe and in the US. Usually everything that is required by Europe is also then replicated also to the US. The latest one in AI is called ISO 42001, and this requires of the technology that you decide to use to be transparent, explainable, and trustworthy. When you decide that you want to choose a technology, make sure that it is compliant with GDPR Article 25, make sure that it has all the right certificates. Corsight naturally have that. And as a result of that, we are following everything that the regulation required in order to be able to deploy any project. And we work very closely with in every project to make sure that everything is done according to the regulation, according to the operation requirements, and according to the local law.
Nice, thank you. So I think another question for you. Looks like the question is, can this be implemented with all existing CCTV infrastructure?
Yeah, the software, it's a software solution which is hardware agnostic. So we work with any type of camera. I do want to emphasize that there is, of course, a minimal level of quality that is required, but because the technology is very strong, usually the minimum level of quality that is required by the camera is supported by the majority of the brands that are out there and that were deployed in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years.
That's another question here. Is how do you prevent issues relating to profiling?
So I'm not sure that I fully understand the question, but if I do, I will try to answer that. The technology, and in general, I would say that the technology is assisting the human. So, for example, if you look at Mall of America, the way that they are deploying the technology is it's assisting the human. There is a man in the loop. The decision itself, as you're taking it now, is a decision that is taken by a human. When you are defining such a project, you usually decide together with a consultant of what will be the way that you implement that and what type of alerts would you like to get from the system, but eventually it is a recommendation or an alert to your team, to your staff, and the final decision is based on them. In some of the projects, the customer decide to have two indications coming from different sources. In some others, it is 3 indications. It depends on, and I think, Michael, this is something that I think from a security consultant perspective, you can say what is common in most places in order to take a decision, but technology is assisting, it's not replacing the decision.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, when it comes to recognizing someone with malicious intent, proper training programs like the one we offer, suspicion indicators, recognition assessment, it's based on the fact that focusing on social, economic, ethnic, gender-based profiles is simply not only, it's not the right thing to do, it's just not operationally effective, if that makes sense. And so the protocols are set to start with the idea that you focus on, if you remember, I mentioned those 3 areas, how malicious intent can be defined. And it's about actions, behaviors, belongings, etc. It's profile abnormalities, positive or negative. It is reaction to potential stress stimuli, as well as specific actions that match with what we have predicted aggressors to be acting at or near our sites. So that kind of eliminates the potential for that from just a practical standpoint. I hope that answers your question. Let's see if there are any others here. Well, good discussion. Yeah. Well, if not, I don't see any more here this time. If not, I just want to thank everyone again for your time and for your interest for attending this event. We hope that it was informative. We will follow up with an email and a link to this webinar if you want to reference it after. And if you have any follow-up questions, you want to reach out to Shai and the Corsight team or us at Rozin Security, we'd love to hear from you and continue the conversation. Thank you again, and we hope to speak with you again soon. Thank you.